and welcome to the Ruby and Pearls knitting channel. My name is Leah, this is Ruby, Pearl is by my feet, and today I have another standard format podcast episode for you. If you are a returning viewer, then thank you so much for coming back. And if you are new here, hi, welcome. I film regular podcast episodes here on this channel, as well as other videos, other knit and chats and pattern roundups. I like to include some footage from my dogs and my dog walks, as well as the local scenery, so the beach and the hills here in West Wales. And you're so welcome here. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're not yet subscribed, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. I'm really close to 4,000 subscribers and I will be doing a giveaway again when I reach that point. This is for you, Sarah. You said that you think maybe Ruby might be a bit camera shy because you mostly just see Pearl on my channel, but Ruby often sits behind you here on the bed and judges me while I film. She's a Cavapoo and the poodle runs very strong in her, and poodles are very intelligent dogs, and she's very funny, and I think she would actually quite like to have a nap now. So I'm going to pop her down and then we'll get into the content. For today's episode, I have 2 finished objects and 1 work in progress, so not very much to share with you. But I have got quite a lot of plans that I would like to tell you about. And at the end of today's video, I'd like to share with you my current sort of 5 favourite YouTube podcasters. I had a comment recently of somebody asking me if I could share who I like to watch the most. And I thought instead of answering that comment, I would share it on here with you. And first I thought I'd do a standalone video, but I think I would just like to go over that quickly at the end of today's podcast episode. So if you're interested, then please stay tuned for that. My first finished object for today's video is not in my possession anymore. I sample knit the Sabrina cardigan for the lovely Laura of Penrose Knits. And the Sabrina cardigan is a pattern that she has designed that is currently in testing. I think it will be coming out possibly at the end of March, something like that. And Laura asked me if I would be willing to knit the second sample for her because she wanted to have a slightly different fit version to share, as well as a different colour and a different yarn option as well. And of course I said yes, I would absolutely love to do that. I knit that cardigan to 95% completion and then sent it back to her, and she finished off the cuffs on the sleeves in order to make sure that the sleeves were the perfect length for her. So that cardigan has gone back to her, and I won't go into too much detail in this video because I have filmed a separate project vlog specifically for that cardigan. I will link that down below, and I would invite you to go and check that out, especially also if you like seeing my local scenery, because I put a lot of effort into sharing little clips in between chatting about that project. But that was the Sabrina cardigan, and I have finished that since we last spoke. My second finished object is what I am wearing today, and I'll go into a bit more detail about this one. This is the Modern Twist by Heidi Kirrmaier, and I think Heidi Kirrmaier was the first sort of modern designer whose patterns I knit when I got into garment knitting. So when I got back into knitting about 7 or so years ago, I was knitting for somebody's future baby, and the lady in my local yarn store, she asked me why I don't knit garments for myself, because I'm quite a fast knitter, and I was quite an advanced knitter already at this point because I've been knitting on and off for most of my life. And I think I was always worried that I didn't have the patience to finish a garment, which is mad because it doesn't actually take me that long now to finish sweaters for myself. But Heidi Kirrmaier was one of her favourite designers, and so she introduced me to her patterns, and I absolutely love Heidi's writing style. I think what is really different about her writing style is that when she gives you instructions on what to do, instead of having every single size within that sentence, she will have a capital bold letter there, and then you insert the number for your size into that spot, and you can find that number in a little table below that paragraph. So you're not constantly searching for the right number and the right size for yourself. And I find that really easy to follow and really user friendly. So if you've never knit from Heidi Kirrmaier before, I would highly recommend you check her out. This, as I say, is the Modern Twist. It is her newest design. It is a sort of worsted to Aran weight pattern. It is all over cabled, but it doesn't feel like all over cabled. And I think that is something that is really, really cool about this pattern. You cable so infrequently that for me this felt more like a mostly stockinette sweater. And for that reason, I would definitely recommend this to a beginner cabler, because you've got pretty low effort to put in terms of cabling, but pretty maximum sort of impact. A lot of patterns that have a little bit of cabling might have it, say, on a raglan line or down the side or in the hem or something like that, and you'll probably be cabling just as much as you are in this pattern, but you don't have the impact of what looks like a fully cabled sweater. The cables in this pattern happen every so many rows, so you do 2 in this column, and then you do the same amount of rows again, and then you offset it and do 2 in this column, and you alternate between these spots, and it's really easy to keep track. So all I did while I was cabling or knitting this sweater is I put a bulb stitch marker into the stockinette fabric on the side here, because it's mostly stockinette all the way around this bit here, and I would count the rows that I have worked, or rounds that I've worked from there, and then I would do my next cable, and that was really, really helpful and really easy for me to keep track of. I knit mine in Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the shade Dusty Artichoke, and I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I think this was a really good yarn for this project. I think I knit it on 4.5mm needles, and you start off by casting on the back panel, and unlike a lot of standard drop shoulder patterns, you work a pure rectangle for the upper back, so it really eases you into the project. You don't have to do a lot of mad things right from the beginning, which is quite nice, because while I do really enjoy casting on a new project, sometimes I haven't got time or the headspace, or we're watching something on TV and I haven't got the mental capacity to wrap my head around a whole new project. But this one, you cast on, you work straight, and then you do some underarm shaping at the bottom of that rectangle. And this doesn't mean that there's bad shaping or lack of shaping in this pattern. To the contrary, she works all the shaping in the fronts. So you pick up then from that cast on edge for the right and the left front, and you actually do the back neck shaping first before working a piece straight and then doing the front neck shaping. And I thought that was really, really cool. The way she gets you to pick up the stitches is really interesting as well. You don't actually pick up stitches out of the stitches that you cast on, you pick up in between the stitches, and by doing so you get the purl columns to line up perfectly. I'm not going to turn around, but you can also see this here on the front neckline, because I actually did the same thing here, and she instructs you to do that, because if you picked up in a seamless way, which is something you would normally do, you end up offsetting by half a stitch. It was more important to have a neat look on the shoulders than a seamless look. So it does look like you've got a seam, but it looks really crisp as well. After you've worked the front yoke, you join in the round, and then you just work a straight body. You work the amount of cables that she instructs you to do, and then you work a 2x2 ribbed hem. For the sleeves, there's quite a lot of short row shaping in the upper sleeve, which I really, really like and need for fit issues, or to prevent fit issues. And then you go into the same kind of cabling sequence on the sleeve, whilst also working some decreases. And what I thought was quite interesting is that she gets you to decrease less frequently in the upper arm and more frequently in the lower arm, which is not something you see very often. But I actually think, if you're thinking of an arm, the slope within your arm, in the upper arm at least, is more gradual than in the lower arm. So I think it actually follows the natural arm shape more. So I really, really like that. I made 2 modifications to this pattern. For the third size, which is the size I knit, she labels that one M1. You would actually end after this, and the dog hair, you'd actually end after this cable twist here. And for me personally, that didn't feel complete, because I saw these cables as complete cables if you twisted twice, and I didn't want to leave it after just one twist. So I added another twist in before going into the cuff, and all I did was I added 4 extra rounds to the sleeves, meaning I finished with a plain round after the last sort of round where I cabled before going into the cuff. I then shortened the cuff by 1 centimetre to make it the same length as the hem, and to compensate for that, those additional 4 rows that I put, or rounds that I put into the sleeve. The other thing I did is I worked a rook bind off instead of a regular in pattern bind off like she instructs you to for every edging, and I think it worked out pretty well. I'm not 100% certain about how I feel about it on the hem, just because my hem flares out ever so slightly, so when I'm standing up sort of on the back it flares out a little bit, and I don't know if I could combat that by unpicking that bind off and doing a regular bind off, or if that is just simply a byproduct from the fact that I've got all these cables here that pull it in and then a hem that doesn't pull in. I'm not sure. I'm going to leave it like this for now, but if I change my mind, I might have to go through the tedious effort of unpicking all the root bind off and doing a regular bind off instead. I just kind of fancied doing that instead, and I think it looks quite nice, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure whether it's worked out, especially for the hem. So that's the modern twist. Really, really pleased with how it turned out. I do like this yarn. However, I don't think I'm going to be rushing to buy more heavy merino. I've actually got one more sweater quantity in my stash that I'll definitely be using, but I'm not sure if I love this yarn. I think there were a few points where, because I cast something else on in this yarn first, I had sort of almost ruined the yarn a little bit. There were like bits where I'd sort of maybe accidentally poked through the ply, and there was just, I don't know, I'm not 100% sure how durable this is going to be, but they claim for it to be very durable, so, or much more than their regular merino, so we will see. It is definitely more rough than their regular merino, so do bear that in mind if you've worked with the merino but not with the heavy merino. I do know that a lot of people pair this with their soft silk mohair. I am not a lover of mohair, at least not for full sweater projects, and so I won't be doing that in the future. But yeah, I don't know how much I love this. I think I like Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool better, which is less expensive and it gives me roughly the same gauge. So if there's a toss-up between those two yarns, that is, you know, the one that I will be going for. But it was nice to try this yarn out. I have got some regular merino coming in the post. I'll talk about that more in my planning section. Let's talk about my only current whip, which will change probably by tonight. There will probably be more than one whip. But right now, my only whip is the Wilde cardigan by Lilykate France. And this is being worked in Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool, and I absolutely love this yarn. It is less expensive, as I said, than knitting for Olive, and I prefer the feel of it, but I get the same kind of gauge, so this is kind of going to be my go-to worsted-ish weight yarn, I think, in the near future. I love the stitch definition that it has. I think it's a really good workhouse all-round kind of yarn. I am knitting the Wilde cardigan with this yarn, and I'm knitting it in the shade Seafoam. And there we are. I hope you can see that. I have just finished a ball, so it was a really good spot to show you. I'll show you the back as well. As I'm sure you can imagine, this is quite an involved project, and there are a lot of people knitting this project at the moment. I've got a little online knit group, and a lot of us have chosen to knit this project. I absolutely adore this pattern, and Lily very kindly gifted me this pattern as well, so just for full transparency, I didn't pay anything for this pattern. I am currently hosting a knit along on Instagram. It's called the Lilykate Along 2026, and I'll put the little poster here on screen for you. All you have to do is share your project from one of Lily's patterns between January and the end of March. There will be some prizes. Use the hashtag, tag me. There's a group chat if you'd like to join, but it's not compulsory. And for this knit along this time round, it's just on Instagram, but I will try to find some other channels as well in future for future knit alongs. So yeah, I have to have a Lily pattern on the go at all times, don't I, while I'm doing this knit along, and also just because I absolutely adore her pattern writing style. I adore the fit that she achieves by how she writes her patterns. She is my favourite designer, I think it's pretty safe to say. And like I mentioned to you, I think last episode, this pattern was a grower for me. I wasn't instantly drawn to it, and I think it might be because it's a raglan, and you know me and raglans. I don't always get on very well with them because of the neckline. However, this is a cardigan, so even if this neckline comes up too high, I can just wear it open, it's not a problem. It also has a collar, this pattern. I'll pop a picture in of Lily's version of the finished piece. So there is a collar, and I'm not 100% sure if I love that collar on me personally. So the thing is, I can just put a regular collar on instead and have that modification. That's absolutely fine. I don't have to follow exactly what she tells me to do. But we'll see. I think the collar is attached at the very end, or, you know, picked up and worked at the very end. So I will probably make up my mind by then. This pattern was very straightforward to follow. So while it is an all over textured and cable pattern, it's not difficult. It's involved, but it's not difficult. You start off by casting on a number of stitches, and every size casts on the same number of stitches. You then work a setup row where you put your markers in to sort of tell you where the raglans are and where the sleeves are and where the neck is. And then she has a chart that you follow for the neckline shaping. And that chart is the same for all sizes, as far as I'm aware. Then she has a chart for the sleeves and a chart for the front and back, and, you know, both fronts included in the same chart, but that's also the back. And there's lines. You kind of have to wrap your head around it a little bit at first, but it becomes quite straightforward to follow. You then work increases every other row. So always on the right side row, you work 8 increases, so 2 on each raglan point. And you do that for quite a long time for every single size. So you don't have to immediately decide which size you're going to be knitting. There comes a point then where you have to decide which size you're going to make, and then there's separate charts for the sort of end point of the raglan shaping. And I am making size 2, which is, I think, the recommended size for me. I have tried it on, and I think I picked the right size. But like I say, I followed that chart, and there was one point where I could have, I think, stopped maybe 8 or so rows sooner and then done the size 3 chart instead and worked a few additional increases in order to have size 3. So that was an option, and I really appreciated that about this pattern, that I didn't have to decide straight away. But yeah, I am so pleased with how this is working out. At this point now, after the sleeve split, I can work this without looking at the chart. I do occasionally consult the chart for this sort of DNA helix kind of cable, just because I'm not 100% certain that I'm getting it right. So I like to double check every now and then. But everything else is really easy to read. So you can actually read your knitting and figure out whether you're getting it right or not, which I really, really like. So this is still pretty involved, but it's pretty straightforward at this point. And I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I've noticed that I really thrive under monogamous knitting conditions. I worked on the Sabrina cardigan monogamously. I put all my other projects down, well, these 2. And when I finished the Sabrina cardigan, I exclusively worked on this, and now I'm exclusively working on this. And I really, really enjoy being monogamous with my knitting. I find it really relaxing. I find I come home from work, I get all the things done that I have to get done, and then I sit down and I know what I'm working on. I know what to expect. I can see my progress pretty rapidly because I'm just working on that project. So there will probably be more monogamous knitting and more project vlogs in my future. And I am thinking about whether that is a good idea in every circumstance, and I don't think it is. So there will be situations where I'll be knitting on multiple things, and that will be coming up very soon actually. Because, for example, this project here, while it's no longer complicated, I can't watch TV really attentively and knit on this. I can sort of listen to it and glance at it, but I can't really watch it and really pay attention. And that means that if I just exclusively work on this and have no other projects on the go, I might end up in a situation where I could be knitting, but now I can't knit because I'm talking to somebody and I need to pay more attention, or because we're watching something, I need to pay more attention. And I like to be knitting whenever I can. So I think whenever I'm working on something that is a bit more complex like this, I intend to have a more stockinette project on the go at the same time. And like I say, this pretty much fulfilled a stockinette project category for me because the cabling was so infrequent and always in the same direction. It was very straightforward. So I have some plainer projects coming up in the near future, and I've got quite a few, and I thought I would quickly talk to you about them. So the first thing that I will be coming up very soon is another sample knit. I thoroughly enjoyed sample knitting for Laura, and it kind of fulfills two really important points for me for this year, because the words for this year for me is to slow down. And like I mentioned to you before in the Every Sweater I Knit That I Still Own from last year video, I have too big of an output in terms of my knitting. I knit too many sweaters. There's no way that I can keep everything that I knit. And by sample knitting, I am able to slow that down because, and it's kind of, it's a bit of a double whammy. It's kind of twofold, the benefits from it. First of all, if I sample knit, if I were to sample knit, say every other garment that I make, it means that only every other garment I make ends up in my wardrobe. So it slows me down there. And it also generates an income for me that I can then spend on wool to make the next project for myself. So basically it kind of pays for my knitting as well. And so I will be doing a lot more sample knitting in the near future. And my next sample knit will be for Rebecca from the Kirrmaier podcast. And I think the yarn might be arriving in the post today. She has sent me some Isaiah Jensen, which I've never knit with before. So I'm really excited to try that out. And unfortunately, in this instance, I won't be able to share that project with you. Unlike the Sabrina cardigan, the sweater that she has asked me to sample knit is for her upcoming book. And so it is currently a secret until she then announces or shares all the patterns that will be in the book. And therefore, I can't share that project with you. So again, if I were just monogamously knitting on that sweater, say for 10 days or so until I finished it, I would then have no content to share with you for 10 days. And then I'd have to probably wait another 2 weeks until I had some progress to share with you on my own personal projects. And therefore, I might not have a podcast for a month. And I really enjoy chatting to you guys on a more regular basis. And so it doesn't, again, that's another project that doesn't make sense for me to be knitting monogamously. So I intend to knit that over the course of February. So today's the 3rd of February, and I tend to try and stretch that project out through the whole month and therefore not really impact the amount of content I have for YouTube and the progress I'm making on my own projects. And it is a bit more of a mindless knit, that particular pattern. So I will be able to watch more TV with that one. So that's coming up. So that's going to be my second work in progress. My third work in progress will be the Calm Down Cardigan by Lilykate France again. I mentioned in my winter knitting plans that I was planning to knit that. I've knit that pattern before. I absolutely love that pattern. Unfortunately, my yarn choice was not very good. And I ended up with a cardigan that was just too big for me. And I've been planning to make another one ever since. And I actually bought yarn. I shared it with you in that planning video. Unfortunately, I didn't really get on with the feel of that yarn when I tried to knit it up. I didn't like the combination of how that felt with how I hold my needles and the type of needles I use. So I've ordered some knitting for Olive Merino in the shade Peacock, which is their really newly released royal blue colour. I'm so excited to knit on that cardigan. I will be holding that double. And I will be knitting that over the course of probably about 6 weeks. So I will actually be buddy knitting that cardigan. I'll share more about buddy knitting in the future when I'm actually working on it. But there are two lovely ladies on Instagram that I have created a little group chat with, and we are going to be buddy knitting that pattern together. And I will be following kind of the same structure that I followed when I was buddy knitting with Yeji, when we made the winter sole together, and that's kind of the structure that she introduced me to. So you give a timeline for separate sections of the pattern. So I think we're going to do 2 weeks for the yoke, 2 weeks for the body, 2 weeks for the sleeves, meaning it's going to take about 6 weeks to make that cardigan. And again, that's not going to feel like another whip for me, because I will probably hyper focus and work on it for a few days, and then I'll put it down and I'll wait for my lovely friends to catch up, because that's what I kind of am like when I really focus in on a project. I get certain sections done really, really fast. And the idea is that you wait for each other, and the 2 weeks is kind of a rough timeline. You know, if everybody's finished sooner, then you move on. If somebody needs a bit longer, you wait. And what was really, really sweet is that one of the ladies, she has already started her cardigan, and she said she would put it on pause until we caught up. And the other one had actually told me months and months ago that she wanted to knit this cardigan, and she had yarn in stash. And she was just happy to wait until I was ready to knit it, which I thought was really, really lovely. So the day I told her I've ordered yarn, she wound up her skeins, she got ready, started swatching. So yeah, really, really lovely aspect of the knitting community again. So that will be my third work in progress. And my fourth work in progress will finally be the Patagonia Peaks Light by Maya Deglan, which is a test knit that I need to complete by sometime in April. And I have ordered yarn for it, finally. I've been umming and ahhing for ages about what yarn to use. I'll put a picture in of her version so that you can see what it will be looking like roughly. But I didn't want to use any boucle yarn, even though it's designed in boucle. So I will be knitting mine in Filcana Peruvian Highland wool. And I will be using this shade as one of the shades in that pattern. I'm very, very excited to knit that as well. So those 4 projects are probably going to carry me through most of February, because I think I can sort of get 2 to 3 sweaters made in a month, and this is a short-ish month, and this is a very involved project. I doubt that I'll have this one finished by the end of February. I would like this to be a longer term project, just because I think, you know, it's such an involved project and I have no rush to finish anything. So in February I would like to finish the sample knit, and I would like to get as far into the Patagonia Peaks as possible so I can provide some feedback as, you know, as per the test knit. But the Calm Down cardigan and this cardigan here, I mean, it would be lovely if I could finish them, because I would like to get as many patterns by Lily done in this knit along as possible. But I've got until the end of March, so I'm going to aim for the end of March for those 2. I've also got a few gift knits that I'm planning. So there's going to be lots and lots of interesting stuff going on here on my channel. So I really, really hope that you will join me. If you're not yet subscribed, I would love it if you would join me here. And yeah, if you would like to now hear about my current favourite YouTube channels, I will just talk about them really briefly. So this is in no particular order. These are 5 creators that are, I don't know, maybe slightly smaller creators. You might not have heard of them. You might have heard of some, but not all of them. And they are the ones that, you know, when a notification pops up, they've released a new video, I instantly watch it, or I put it in my watch later so that I definitely don't miss the next video. The first person I'd like to share with you, and I'll link all of those channels in the description box below as well. The first one is Yeji from Handmade Co. And I've spoken about Yeji a few times. We've buddied knit the Winter Soul together. She is a wonderful creator and a wonderful knitter, and she is a very prolific knitter. She knits a lot. She's a fast knitter. She knits all kinds of different projects, but mostly sweaters. And she's very analytical about her knitting, and I really enjoy watching her project vlogs. So because she is a monogamous knitter for the most part, she shares a lot of project vlogs, and she shares sort of from A to Z everything about one project. And I think that is really valuable, because when I share with you, say for example for this sweater here, I shared it with you once as a whip and now as a finished object. I don't really share every single step of the way, and I noticed when I filmed the Sabrina cardigan project vlog that I shared a lot more details and a lot more things that I came across in that process, because I jumped on screen, you know, on a regular basis rather than just twice within that project. So I think there's a lot to learn and a lot of knowledge to get from project vlogs like Yeji's, where she shares the whole project from A to Z. So highly recommend that you check her out. The second person I would like to share with you is Maya Tinks. So Maya Deglan is the designer of the Patagonia Peaks that I just mentioned. And I think I came across her as a YouTuber before I found out that she was designing. She's a relatively new designer, and if you've not checked out any of her designs before, I would highly, highly recommend that you do. She is a size inclusive designer who places a lot of emphasis on fit and on modifications to fit your body, depending on, you know, if you've got a larger bust than predicted or a wider back than predicted. Like, she does a lot of modifications, a lot of advice in her patterns, Her patterns are very detailed and extremely clever. Like, I'm always fascinated by how her mind works and how she creates these interesting constructions in her patterns. Maya is also a very, very funny person. Like, I really enjoy watching her podcast because whenever she stumbles over her words, because English isn't her first language, she's French Swiss. And when she stumbles over her words, instead of cutting that bit out like some people might do, she places more emphasis on it and has a little giggle at herself. And I just think that's really wonderful. She also throws in the odd French word. She shares a little bit about her climbing hobby. And yeah, I just highly recommend that you check her out. I'm lucky enough to call Maya a friend. And yes, I'd really recommend that you watch her. Speaking of Swiss people, the third channel I'd like to share with you is Friendsheepknits, which is a duo, Anita and Andra. I really love watching them. They are two young ladies from Switzerland, and they are actually from my home county. So they are German Swiss as opposed to French Swiss, which is, you know, where Maya's from. And there's a couple of things that I really, really enjoy. I just love seeing their friendship. I really, really love seeing them knit with yarns that I grew up knitting with. So they knit a lot with yarns that are accessible within Switzerland, and these are all yarns that I used to buy when I was a child, and I used to go to my local yarn shop there. So it's quite nostalgic and quite lovely for me to see. And then sometimes they speak to each other in Swiss German, or they will put a little blooper at the end where they're talking in Swiss German, which is also just really, really endearing and lovely. And yeah, I think the main thing that connects me to their channel is not necessarily the projects they pick or the colours they pick. It's more sort of that it's from my home. So yeah, I'd highly recommend you check them out as well, especially if you like watching a duo on screen. And speaking of duos, another duo that I really, really love watching, and their channel has grown quite a bit lately, I think. They're called Tweed and Twill. They make a podcast called Fiberabend, and they are German podcasters. So if you don't speak any German, this might not be for you, but they are Svenja and Silke, and I absolutely adore watching them. They are so fun. They look like they're having such a good time with each other. They laugh together. They make jokes together. They throw in a little bit of local slang from time to time. And they make really, really beautiful projects. And there's just something about how they present their projects that's just really fun to watch. They also like to pass on a lot of tips and tricks and sort of tool of the week. So they will share some kind of new knitting tool that they've come across that they've really enjoyed. And yeah, I highly, highly recommend, if you speak German, that you check them out. And the last podcaster, and this is in no particular order obviously, is Nat from Tink and Frog Knits. And Nat is in my newly created online knit group, and I absolutely love watching Nat. If I ever come across somebody who tells me that they'd love to be a knitter, but they're intimidated and they don't think they're going to be good enough, and they don't think they'll ever reach the point where they can knit garments that they can wear, I will recommend to them to watch Nat, because she only started knitting last March. So she's been a knitter for less than a year, and she has tackled brioche, she has tackled stranded colour work, she has made loads of sweaters, she's self-drafting her own pattern. She's incredible. I can't believe that within a year of knitting, or less than a year of knitting, she's managed to make so much and make so much progress. And I think as adults, when you go to tackle a new hobby, sometimes, especially if you're prone to being a bit of a perfectionist like I am, I often write off new hobbies completely because I know that I'm not going to be very good at it from the start. And it's going to take me a long time to become good at it. And that, I think, is why it's such a good idea to learn these things as a child, because you don't really think about these things as much as a child as you do as an adult. But then, you know, if you're worried that you're never going to be a proficient knitter, just watch Nat. She can do it. She's amazing. And I'm sure a lot of other people can do it too. So I think she's a real inspiration. And she's really funny as well. She's really natural. She's really herself on camera, which I really enjoy. She's just started a new series where she's sharing all her out of control whips, and I find that kind of chaos really fun to watch as well. So I highly recommend you check her out. I think she's a really, really wonderful person, wonderful podcaster. So those are sort of my top 5 currently watched podcasts. And as you can see, most of them are not the biggest channels on YouTube that everybody has watched that have tens of thousands of subscribers. I do watch some of those as well. But I really, really enjoy the smaller creators, the ones that are a little bit more unique and a bit more special and a bit more themselves. That is kind of the type of content that I like to watch and the type of content I hope that I'm also sharing with you. So I've been doing a lot of hand gestury stuff today. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I will be back again fairly soon with another podcast. I plan to do some more pattern roundups in the near future. Hopefully some more project vlogging, because I really enjoyed the Sabrina, so please do check that one out. It is in the comment in the description box down below. Leave me a comment, let me know what you've been working on while we've been chatting, and I hope to see you very, very soon. Thank you for watching.
Under the boughs where the shadows play, the wind hums songs at the break of